Popular social media superstar, the renowned content creator, the serial risk taker, and undefeated fighter, introducing the problem child, jakepaul!
Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
That's what knows. There's no way. That ain't gonna do it.
You're doing really good. All right.
Before the fight was the early rounds could be decisive, and it is quite clear.
Leyenda continúa. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
The fight, valiant effort by both guys. Nothing was left in the corner. Nothing was left in.
Well, Jake, how'd you feel in there?
I just felt flat, man. Not my best performance. I guess that happens in the sport. You know, you got to peak right at the right moment. You only get one night, one chance, and I messed that up, I guess. But didn't think I'd ever have to make one of these videos, but it happens, I guess. This is still the best job in the world. Thank you all for the support. This was an amazing event, and I'll be back. No worries, cuz.
Well, Jake, I know there was a lot of talk about him and his power. You took his shots pretty well and you knocked him
No,
down.
his power wasn't that crazy. He just had good speed, good combinations, but Anderson and Tyron hit really hard, so I was used to that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Man, you got to take it on the chin, but it was good. Some good moments in there. I just really couldn't get my game plan working. But hey, man, this is what the sport's all about. You win some in glorious fashion, and you lose some. And like I said out there, judging me on my losses because I'll be back. You know, I think he was just really well prepared, and I think it was more.
With the showdown between Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez just days away, DAZN Boxing released an exclusive featuring the two fighters, along with direct interviews from special guests that raised expectations even higher for Jake Paul. Armin Tsarukyan was completely fascinated by the 28-year-old boxer, calling Jake a legend for starting boxing so late and still showing such good skills. According to him, Jake Paul's desire to prove everyone wrong impressed him deeply. But what surprised him the most was Paul's agility and mobility despite his size. "I'm surprised how big he is. He's so big and hits so hard," Tsarukyan said, claiming that Paul moves like a real boxer and expressing confidence that Paul is ready for the weekend and will come out victorious. Looking at the statistics, it's hard to believe anyone would bet on Jake Paul to beat Chavez Jr., but considering the Mexican fighter's performances and the trajectory of his recent fights, one could certainly make an argument in favor of the YouTuber turned boxer. Meanwhile, Armin Tsarukyan is not the only big name backing Paul for the June 28th showdown. Recently, a 6th Division World Boxing Champion and another combat sports icon also made a surprising prediction that shocked everyone. Golden Boy Promotions director Oscar De La Hoya will be keeping a close eye on the Paul versus Chavez Jr. fight, especially since two of his fighters, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez and Floyd Schofield, will be fighting on the undercard, and the event is co-promoted by Golden Boy Promotions. Just a few days ago, the 52-year-old boxing legend decided to liven things up in true Golden Boy style. De La Hoya shared his predictions for the entire card, saying, "It's fight week. Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I'm gonna give you my predictions, Golden Boy style, baby," while taking off his robe and making all his picks in his underwear. As expected, Raul Curiel, Floyd Schofield, and Zurdo Ramirez were his picks for the undercard, but things took an unexpected turn when it came to the main event. After predicting a back-and-forth battle, De La Hoya called Jake Paul to win by split decision in the 12th round, declaring Jake Paul as his favorite. The Jake Paul boxing experiment continues rolling on Saturday when the social media star turned. Fighter steps into the ring to face former middleweight champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. This fight with Chavez Jr. marks Paul's second consecutive bout against a former world champion, following his November win over 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Although Chavez Jr. is not 58, he's only 39. He's still more than a decade removed from his days as a serious top-tier boxer. Even at his peak, Chavez Jr. never came close to matching the incredible legacy of his father's career and was often weighed down by controversy and self-inflicted problems. No, I don't think he's good. I think he tries. He trains hard, but he's not a good fighter. Chavez Jr. said at the final press conference, "He's definitely not a good boxer. If he were, everyone else on the stage would be a legend too. I don't think he's good, and everybody knows that." In a way, that makes Chavez Jr. the perfect opponent for Paul. Paul has made a name for himself feasting on aging fighters far past their prime, while still pulling in huge audiences. After beating fellow influencer Anes Gibb to start his pro career, Paul knocked out retired basketball player Nate Robinson. He then faced a string of ex-UFC fighters like Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, whom he fought twice, and Anderson Silva. After a close split decision loss to Tommy Fury, Paul went back to fighting ex-UFC names and beat Nate Diaz. He also tried fighting actual pro boxers like Andre August and Ryan Borland, stopping both club-level fighters in the first round. Those fights were standard for most pros with fewer than 10 career bouts. But because they lacked name value, public interest dropped, driving Paul back to the same formula, fighting another ex-UFC fighter, Mike Perry, whom he battered for the 7th stoppage win of his career before moving on to fight Mike Tyson in a massive box office event. Though the fight was disappointingly dull, Paul safely outboxed Tyson and looked as though he didn't want to hurt the aging legend. And that brings us to Paul versus Chavez Jr. Chavez still has name value, real boxing experience, and a world championship in his past. He also fits the usual profile of a Paul opponent past his prime and undersized for a cruiserweight matchup. He's a great fighter. I like big names, legendary names, and he's on my path to a world championship, Paul said at the final press conference. "This is a tough test, a very tough test, but I'm here to challenge myself, do big things in this sport, and then make a title run after I beat him on Saturday." To his credit, Paul was close to securing a fight with Saul Canelo Alvarez, before it became clear Alvarez only used him for leverage before signing a 3-fight deal with Riyadh Season. Now, we're back to the typical Paul formula, though this time, his opponent arguably poses more risk than former UFC fighters, because Chavez Jr., no matter how faded, has spent most of his life training and fighting in the boxing ring. That's all for now. For the very best updates on news, moments, events, and action in the boxing world, stay connected with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss when we drop quality content like this. Until next time, peace.